question number one. I want to talk live TV and experience and you and like how you're able to handle something like that.
Yeah, so again, I have a lot of experience in pageantry. So a lot of the interview questions are really about you and what you do and what you like and why you're representing such state, county, country. They're really just personality questions and what your kind of role is as a miss. So it didn't really come hard because it's just really just being yourself. One of the things that I learned from your class in the studio is that I'm obviously the talent, right? So they're interviewing me. And the directors kind of just, there's a crowd clapping, right? That they're being directed to clap. So after every question, everyone's clapping. And as I'm answering the person who's interviewing me, the director's kind of pointing me like, look at this camera, look at that camera, look at this camera. And that was the first time that I saw what I learned in your class happening live. And I was like, oh, okay, I know what I'm doing here. So then I started getting used to it and putting that more into practice. But yeah, it's very simple. The questions are really just about yourself. There's not much to it, just being yourself and answering it how you would if you were talking to your friends.
But what about, I mean, even directing you? Like, you need to, like, hit marks here, here, and here. Do they tell you, like, when you're here, you have to know this camera, et cetera, et cetera?
Right. So let's say, you know, there's like 4 or 5 cameras. There's always at least 3. And the director's just kind of doing this the whole time. He's not even, I don't get a headset. No one tells me anything, just the person who's interviewing me. And she'll kind of give me like, you know, the look while she's like happy interviewing me. And I'm like, okay, no, I got to stop talking. But yeah, it's just, they do this all the time here, and they'll like lipstick, and then they'll start running over here. And it's just, everything's going back and forth so fast. Yeah.
Oh my.
Mm-hmm. And then before you get on to get interviewed, they kind of give you a quick overview of what kind of questions you might get and how it's going to be like and how much time you have, because obviously everything is time and it's fast.
Have they ever cut you off, like you took too long?
It's just like you can tell the interviewer is rushing you, because she's just kind of like, she's like, oh, you know, so tell me about like the immigration in your country. And I'm like, I'm starting to get into the answer, and you can tell she's like, yeah, that's great. And then she's kind of trying to like push it into her next question. I don't know if she or he needs to get all the questions in on time, or if that's just part of, you know, the show business. Time to get it in as quick as possible.
Huh. Interesting. Well, so so do you like sports? Like, is that like with the internship, or was that just you took it was available?
Yeah, when I was young, I played a lot of sports. So I always knew that I would get into that industry in some way, but I didn't want to be a sports reporter. That was like my ultimate dream. And I don't really know much about any sport but the NBA. So during my last semester as a senior, when I luckily got the internship with ABC, I remember before my interview, and you guys can tell this to Falkowski if you want. He may not even remember this little story. But I was like, oh, because he, you know, he has a lot of experience with News 12 and sports, and I think the Devils too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I asked him, I was like, hey, you know, I am gonna be doing this internship. I'm not too familiar with spring season sports. What do you think my chances are? What do you recommend? And his first reaction was like, ooh, I don't know. I was like, that's not nice. He's like, you gotta know something. You gotta know something about every sport. I don't know, it's gonna be really hard for you to get that internship. And I love Falkowski. But he was just straight up. So that night I just started studying every current sport, every local sport, every player, anything that I needed to know to get that internship. But it happened, and then Falkowski helped me a lot because he just knows so much. And he brought me to the Devils game. He showed me so much. I mean, if you're into, even if it's not sports, just like anything with communications, even if you're behind the scenes, you learn so much with him as well. You guys are my top two for communications.
No.
Hmm.
So what took you from the internship to like where did you go from there?
As soon I kind of planned out when I was gonna start really focusing on Miss Universe. I wanted to graduate. That was my biggest thing, which is why I kind of always juggled school and work. I wanted to graduate first. I wanted to get my degree. So as soon as I graduated, which was in 2018, I decided to stop everything, stop my job, stop my career searching for sports reporting, everything, and just focus entirely on the pageant. A lot of people think that pageants are just what you see on TV, which is the show. But the best way that I can kind of relate it is like a professional athlete. They don't just go out and play. There's years and months of practice. There's and in our end, like for beauty queens, interview questions, media, walking on stage, there's actually a style to it. Really trying to learn your style. You have to exercise and really just get your body to the fittest way possible that you can get. Not that there's a requirement, but it's always nice to know that a woman worked hard for the body that she's presenting on stage. And then it's just confidence, which is surprisingly for a lot of girls hard to build. So there's just so much that goes into it, but ultimately when you're just being yourself on stage, when you're being yourself the whole time, it becomes natural. It becomes natural.
What so with everything happening with the whole Miss Universe, you've done like you've traveled, you've met a whole bunch of people, you've done a whole like doing things. Is that super exciting?
Yeah, well, it's exciting, it's overwhelming, there's a lot. So first there's a national pageant, right? So I had to compete in El Salvador to be Miss El Salvador, to then go to Miss Universe. So the first pageant I prepared so much for, I dropped everything and it was, I'm gonna be Miss El Salvador, I'm gonna go to Miss Universe. And I don't live in El Salvador, so I have family there, but where the pageant takes place, it's like over 4 hours away. So I really had to make a lot of sacrifices. I had to move to El Salvador, ask a friend who lived just slightly closer if I can stay with her while I train. There was just so much that I had to do for Miss El Salvador that when I finally won, I was so happy. I was so like, I couldn't believe that, my dream was being fulfilled. Like I'm going to Miss Universe. That everything just kind of happened overnight. All the work, like I was booked from the moment I was crowned to after Miss Universe. I did not stop. What really was the toughest part for me was the traveling constantly. You'd be surprised after you travel for a long time how you just at times want to just be home for at least 2 weeks straight. And that's how often I would travel, because there would be, bookings in Miami, LA, El Salvador, because of the country I represent, New York, kind of the main cities in the US. And everything was just so fast, and you have to get fitting for dresses, you have to get fitting for your costumes, there's people who want to coach you. You're just everywhere you land. From the moment I would land anywhere, I would get picked up and go to my interview or go to my fitting, or it was just kind of on a schedule all the time. It never stopped. It's like a 24-hour job. I would wake up and I was like, okay, what do I have to do now? So I ended up getting, I had this for Miss Universe, which I recommend for anything you do. I ended up getting a journal and just writing down my agenda. And I also would use that to kind of write down my daily affirmations and goals, short-term and long-term, which really helped me. My journal was like my best friend. Like I couldn't wait to sit down on the airplane and just open up my journal and start kind of crisscrossing and checking because it was so fulfilling. But it was a hectic year. Nonetheless, it was very exciting and so much fun, but very stressful and tough.
I can't even imagine. And then, I mean, from that, everyone wants to follow you, be part of you on social media. There's fan pages of you, which has to be surreal to
Yes.
have something like that happen. But like, how has it been then transitioning into like this social media influencer brander at the same time?
Yeah, it was very exciting. I loved it. It was, like I said, it happened overnight. So it's kind of one of those things like, careful what you wish for, and then it happens and you're like, whoa, okay, what do I do with all this? And what was really difficult for me with social media was all the messages that would come in daily. And if, God forbid, I didn't post for more than 2 hours, Zulika, we need to know what you're doing. What's happening right now? Are you getting fitted? What dress are you gonna wear in Miss Universe? Are you getting coached? What's happening? And it's just, and it's not that it's in a bad way. You know, I represent them and I have a bunch of fans who are really excited for me, and I love that. It motivates me. But at the same time, it's just like they're here all the time. And I wish I was the kind of person that doesn't look at my direct messages, doesn't read my comments, but I do.
She reads them all. She reads
I always do.
everyone.
I do, because I don't know. I just like reading them, even if they're negative. But I've learned to take criticism, constructive criticism, and just ignore the extremely negative comments, because no matter what you do in life, Miss Universe, or in the workforce, especially in media, there are going to be people who are going to be kind of envious of your position or what you're doing, and not everyone is going to be liking you, so you cannot please everyone, so it's just part of life, and I just ended up getting used to it. But yeah, the social media was a big thing for me too.
Oh my. Yeah. I mean, your Instagram page, you have a bajillion followers on there. I can't even imagine keeping up with that. I have a hard time. We're up to 1,051 followers on
That's amazing.
Instagram. Yes. So I mentioned yesterday, because we talked to Dante yesterday, that she was in the first Instagram live video, but so were you. The two of you were in Kane TV's first Instagram live video. I didn't even know what it was at the time.
Yeah, I did a lot of things with Dante. She's great. And I still hang out with her, but it's another topic.
Yeah, she raved about you. But where would you say, because with a lot of these jobs and whatnot, it's all about confidence, right? Which is like the big key. Where do you get the confidence from to just, go out there and kind of do it? Like, for instance, how did El Salvador come into play? Like, did you just wake up one morning and you're like, I'm going to do this, and just...
No. Yeah, so I'm a first generation American. My mother is from El Salvador, so she came to this country, the US, around the 80s in El Salvador, which was a really rough time for our country. And so I grew up under my mother's household, which was, as a first generation American, it's tough because you don't really have anyone to fall back on that knows, the proper, I guess, journey in the US for you. And as you're going up, you're learning these things, and you really end up teaching your parents, and helping them more so with a job and what they can do from the life that they gave you. So I was always very proud of being from El Salvador, proud of the culture that my mom really put into my life from a little girl. And then we would travel and visit our family over there, and I just loved it so much. And I just was so proud of my mom's story that I started pageantry when I was 15, and since then I always represented El Salvador, even in the US, and when I would go and compete internationally, until I finally got to Miss Universe. My main goal was really to just show everyone that El Salvador is here, because a lot of people don't know about El Salvador. Some people confuse it with Ecuador. They don't even know it exists. So I really wanted to bring more awareness to our country and our people and what I was proud of, especially in the pageant world, because we all know politics exist. So, you know, the bigger the country, the more known and the more popular. So there's obviously a lot of beauty queens from the US, a lot of beauty queens from the more bigger countries like Colombia, Philippines, especially all the Asian countries. So I just really wanted everyone to know that our country is here and what we have to offer. So with, you know, beginning at 15 years old, representing El Salvador in every pageant that I could, once I got the opportunity to compete for Miss Universe, I ran with it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's kind of, oh my, it's very surreal with all of that happening at once. I can't even imagine what that's like. So is there just, there's like a personal assistant that says you're booked for this, you just have to show up?
I have a director. Every girl that competes in Miss Universe has a director that she reports to, and everything is run by he or she, your director. So they can book everything for you. You can throw suggestions, which it just kind of depends on the country and the organization that you're with. My director was very nice, where I can throw suggestions, and he was willing to work with me, and he was very open-minded, which was great. So, but everything had to be run by him. I couldn't just go and do a photo shoot. I couldn't just go and get interviewed. I couldn't just, yeah. The only thing he let me really be free about was social media. But, you know, anything had to be ran by him, and he would have to kind of gear me where I would go.
So do you feel like, as far as like a social life or your own social media, because I mean, this is your page now. So do you feel like you don't have the privacy that you maybe want, or are you happy with things the way they are? I mean, I got to watch you paint. You're great, by the way.
Thank you.
But like, are you looking for any kind of privacy maybe that you're not getting?
No, I felt like that during my reign as, well, I'm still Miss El Salvador, but I felt like that before the Miss Universe pageant. I felt like I had no privacy because everyone just wanted to know about every second of my whereabouts up until Miss Universe. And if it wasn't like fans on social media, it was direct. Even with my family, it was overwhelming because there was times, my family in the US, where I would come back to the US for, I want to say, about a week, and my family would make me feel terrible about not visiting them. But the reason I wouldn't is because I didn't want to get distracted, and I just had so much on my plate that I couldn't squeeze them into my schedule. I had to get ready for the next 2 or 3 weeks that I had coming up. So you have the pressure of your family, the pressure of fans, pressure of social media, your organization, and it was tough. But I do feel like now I have my privacy back. Of course, people still want to know about my whereabouts, but I think not as extreme as it was when I was in Miss Universe.
Were you like getting out of cars with paparazzi, whole nine?
So in the Philippines, that happened a lot. In El Salvador, surprisingly, the pageant culture isn't as popular, but if I would walk around, if anyone knew about Miss Universe, which it's getting better over there, people would stop me and be like, "Are you Zulika?" Or, you know, that would happen a lot in El Salvador, obviously, because I represent them. And then in Miami, I had kind of a team there where they would just pick me up from the airport. I would get, you know, driven and pictures and all that. So everywhere I went, I had someone who was my recorder, picture person, and someone who was like kind of my bodyguard.
So where do you want to go like now? Like what's the goal with all of this? Like what do you want to do from here on?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think that the organization in El Salvador, for Miss El Salvador and Miss Universe in particular, needs a lot of work, and I kind of want to partake in that and help the upcoming beauty queens for the years to come. And I'm hoping that that will also land me a career still in communications, but I think I want to go more for like a TV presenter rather than sports, which I wouldn't mind sports, but I'm not really tackling that so much.
Right.
And with my arts, I'm very passionate about painting, so I really want to take that to another level. I don't really sell my paintings. Everyone is always asking me, you know, you should sell them, but I don't like to do that for now. So I just paint and receive donations, and I kind of want to take it to another level with the painting as well. So that's where I'm at right now. Who knows if it can change? We'll see.
Do you think you'll see yourself like using social media, being like a brand ambassador for certain things? Like, are there things that you're allowed or not allowed to do at this point?
No, not well. Yes and no, because my contract is still not over with El Salvador. So, you know, but really I have all my freedom right now. The pageant has passed, so there's not much expected from me. The only thing that I, you know, have to fulfill is going to crown the new queen for next year and being a part of that pageant and when that comes up.
Oh, do you guys have any questions? I know I'm like monopolizing like I usually do.
Yeah, I hope with that we are not boring you guys. How many people are I don't
I
know
have
if
a
I'm
lot of
looking at this right. Sure. What's your name?
Abby.
I don't see Abby.
Abby, put your camera on.
Okay.
Oh, okay, I see. I
Hi.
get it. Hi, how are you?
How are you? Good. So I'm sorry. I look like a mess. I'm working right now. I'm working from home. But I was really excited because I have done pageants in the past and I love pageants. And I actually watched you and I thought you did amazing. And I started pageants really late. I didn't do my first pageant till I was 20. And even, and I stopped and I always wanted to go back. But obviously health has to do with it, weight. I was in shape. I had always been an in shape kind of girl, but when I did it for the first time, I was one of the biggest girls and I was only at 100, maybe 40 pounds. Because of my age limit and because I've always lived my life very cautiously, I really am trying hard to go back this year. I'm 27, so I'm at the last year I can compete for Miss New Jersey, and I'm going to, and I've been on a journey to get back into shape. So I just wanted to like know what, because I know girls, and you probably know this, that compete in a pageant 6 or 7 times and don't win. And then lately, if you follow the New Jersey system, we've had a couple winners in the last years who've done it once or twice and won. And
yes.
What do you do? Because obviously it's a lot of girls. What do you do to, because when you're sitting there with the judges, you only have 3 minutes and you ask so many questions to really sell yourself and say, you know what, I'm different from the rest. How did you were able to convince them that you were the right from El Salvador?
You have to believe it, and you have to project that confidence in front of them. You can say gibberish, but as long as you are so confident when you're saying it in front of them, they're like, oh my, this is the girl, this is the one who's going to represent us. And I also recommend, you know, this is your last year, you're about to age out.
Mm-hmm.
You need, if you really want this, if you really want to be Miss New Jersey, you need to forget everything. You have to be in tunnel vision. Forget what anyone thinks, forget what anyone says. I recommend writing things down. What are your goals from now until the pageant and the competition? What do you need to get? Do you need to get a trainer for the gym? And if money is an issue, because for me, that was very much a big deal for Miss El Salvador, do it yourself. Right now, we have social media and the internet. Look it up. Look up some workout routines if that's big for you, how you can lose the weight. If you want to learn about makeup, everything is in the internet now. You don't really need to hire anyone. I remember I was looking at pageant coaches, and you know, for just an hour of a session, it was like $300 something. And I was like, what are they going to teach me that with my years of experience that I know and I can learn myself? But if you can afford it, I do recommend a pageant coach. But if money is an issue, it's best that you practice that on your own. But my biggest advice to you is tunnel vision. Forget what your boyfriend, your mom, your dad, what everyone tells you. This is what you're going to do, and you know what you're going to do to get there. So if you can, get a journal, write down what the steps are going to be, and little by little, as you start crossing it out, you're going to start noticing, wow, like we're getting there. By the time it's Miss New Jersey, you're going to feel so ready. I mean, of course you're going to be nervous, you're gonna be like, you're gonna look back at that journal and everything that you wrote down and everything and all the steps that it took you to get there, even like your appointment to go get fitted for your dress, you know, your appointment to go to orientation, all those things are important. Everything that is leading to that point, write it down and practice it. Record yourself. If no one wants to do it, do it yourself.
Yeah.
Because there's gonna be tons of people who either won't be okay with you doing it or won't believe that you can do it. So you just have to kind of block those people out. Another thing that really helped me, because confidence is a big deal in any pageant. If you have no confidence they're gonna be like, you know, I don't know if this girl can really be the face for us, be the speaker for us, because it's all on speaking. What I did is Amazon Audible. I don't know if anyone has that app. It's a good app, but I downloaded a lot of motivational audiobooks. And every time I would drive to and from work, I would listen to it really, really loud. And it actually helped me. And I would listen to that almost every single day up until my pageant. And it helped. So I hope that's some of my advice.
No, I appreciate it. I've worked with Luciera, but I get what you're saying. You can learn a lot online, and I have been trying to do that as well, especially now with quarantine. You can't really train with people.
Right, exactly. I mean, everything is virtually, and most pageant coaches are going to take advantage of this quarantine and do virtual coaching. I mean, it's always good to get tips, but everything is online, and you can teach yourself how to do it.
I have a question.
Yes.
You touched on it a little bit before with Abigail. What is the average cost to be in a competition?
So every competition is different. In the US, they're much more expensive than they are in El Salvador. Much more expensive. But for example, Miss New Jersey, I've done that pageant when I forget the age, forgive me, but you know, anywhere between like 15 and 18 or 17. I did that pageant, and basically they initially, once you apply, they ask you for, is it okay if I share the information and the details of Miss New Jersey pageant?
Yeah.
Like money-wise? They ask you for like about over $2,000 of sponsorship that you need to give them before you compete.
Not 2,000. Well, at
That's
least
how it was
these
in my year.
Oh yeah, it was 1,000 my year.
Oh, okay. So I did it like years ago. My year was like 2,500 if I'm not mistaken. And they ask you to do it based off sponsorship. So you go around asking people, hey, you know, I'm going to compete in Miss New Jersey. Would you like to sponsor me in the pageant? And, you know, they'll give you some money up until you raise that much. Or if, you know, you can afford the money, you can just pay it up front. But in order to be a contestant, you do have to at least fulfill the money that they're looking for. And Miss New Jersey is really only like 3 or 4 days long. I don't know if it's still like that, the pageant itself.
What I noticed, it was about $1,000, and it's 3 nights and everything, but it is expensive. What they do is that's how they cover, because we have to stay at the hotel for our protection. It's like she said when she was Miss Salvador. I've done smaller pageants, and in smaller pageants it's even more, and they don't provide all the things they provided at Miss New Jersey. So it is expensive and costly, but there is a sponsorship at every pageant. And I do think for Miss New Jersey, my personal opinion, it was worth it because everything was nice and they did a lot for us. But yeah, you can either do it a sponsorship, or you can do it, pay it up, but you have to, it's every pageant. And that's just, I think, just to cover the costs.
But I meant also, like, you know, you're talking like, you know, when you incorporate travel fees, your gowns, you know, hair, makeup, when you incorporate all that, what is the average expense you're talking about?
Yeah, so that again goes back to depending on the organization that you represent and how much they're willing to support you in it. In the US, you get a lot of support if you're representing whatever state that you represent, because ultimately it's Miss Universe, the organization itself, that owns the state pageants too. So you get a lot of support. I think the girls don't even really have to pay much, just the competing part they do before they become queens, which is every pageant has a fee to enter it. Every pageant has a fee before you compete. And then of course, how much you're willing to invest in yourself, in your dress, in your coaching, in your and your makeup, everything that you want to learn and really put into yourself. So with me, it was different because I had to travel to El Salvador and find a closer route that would allow me to compete because it was over a month long. So the months leading up to it, I saved up a lot of money. So I paid my own travel, I paid my own stay, my own food, everything. I want to say I probably wasted about, which I don't think is even a lot because El Salvador is, you know, the prices over there is nothing compared to over here. It's a lot cheaper. So I want to say I probably invested in, this is the national pageant in El Salvador, maybe $8,000 in total. And that's including my stay, my flight, my own personal coaching, how much I put into my outfits, my dresses, everything. But in the US, you know, once you get in, you have someone representing you all the way. But in Miss Universe, with my organization, they do cover travel. So I didn't have to worry about travel. I don't get compensated to be Miss El Salvador. I'm not getting paid. Other countries do it, just that for El Salvador, it's a different criteria.
You have one person that just solely makes your dress? You use different
You
people?
have, no, so you can, there are designers, right? Like, yeah. So there are designers and you can reach out to any designer you like if you have your own preference, or, you know, whoever reaches out to you and is interested in working with you. If you like their work, you have a variety of options to choose from. Mm-hmm.
Here's a question. How were you in college with public speaking, and how has that like affected what you're doing now?
Public speaking for me, especially when I started acting, was so hard for me, especially when I would have to do presentations. I remember one of the classes, I attended the class every day. I was always on time. I did all the tests. I did everything I needed to do. But when it came down to the presentations, I wouldn't show up. And that's how much anxiety and how nervous I was speaking in front of people that I wouldn't show up, and I didn't care if I failed the class. After all the work that I would have put into the class at the end, I was like, yeah, I don't really care, because I'm not going to go up there and talk to all these people. And I'm just going to hope the professor's nice enough to kind of know who I am and just, this girl's shy, let's just still give her a passing grade, but that never worked. So pageantry actually helped me with public speaking.
Do you still feel yourself getting nervous in front of a lot of people?
Yeah, it always still happens. Like, it gets better, you know, if I'm doing it constantly. Because even as Miss El Salvador, the questions start to become pretty much the same, and they're always reworded differently. So it's almost like I start to sound like a robot, but I don't want to. And I just feel like I'm constantly answering the same questions, because people just always want to know the same thing. And it's typically always about you.
Huh.
Yeah,
Interesting.
but with practice, it does get better, and like actually practicing in front of a lot of people.
So would you say that even, you know, practicing public speaking and then doing this would be the same kind of confidence type deal for like getting a job and interviewing and that kind of thing?
Oh yes, 100%. Because that's what happens when you go on a show and then they talk to you. They're interviewing you. They're interviewing you, so it does prepare you for that.
Have you done a bad interview before?
Not that I recall. I think one time on one of the shows, I was so nervous that I like, this was like the beginning of my interviews, that I could feel myself shaking so much. And I think it's because it was one of my first interviews that everyone at home was watching me and everyone was telling me like, we're so excited to see you. And I was just, that made me even more nervous. I didn't want my family to watch. I didn't care if it was anyone I didn't know, but my family just applied much more pressure to myself.
Right.
But you get better with it. You just have to sit down and understand that these people are like you and me. You're talking to your friends, you're having coffee, and just answer confidently.
Fair enough. Todd, did you have a question before? Was that your hand? No, was I thinking? No? Okay.
I have a question.
Valerie's got a question.
How hard was it to go back because of the culture and the language and all of that? Because I know it's totally different there.
Yeah, so the last, from 2012 to 2018, I was always in school. So I hadn't been back, at least living in El Salvador, for a while, a really, really long time. And when I decided to go, my mom, my father, my whole family was against the idea of me going to move by myself and compete in a pageant that was nowhere near where our family over there even lives. The culture there is completely different, so they were worried for me. But I knew that was going to happen, and I knew they were going to get into my head, so I didn't tell anyone anything until about 2 weeks before I was leaving. That's when I told my parents, I'm not going to be around for about a month and a half. This is what I'm doing, and no one's telling me anything. And the reason I did that is because my parents are so traditional that they wouldn't have known or seen what I was trying to do. So I had to show them. I'm sorry, Valerie, what was your initial question?
The language, like, was it hard? Because when you learn another language, I don't know if Spanish was your first language or not, but when you learn another language, it's really hard to then know how to say other things. So it gets really
So the language wasn't hard for me at all because I speak Spanish with my mom and the rest of my family. So that wasn't hard for me. Growing up, I was speaking both languages, in school in English and at home in Spanish. So the language wasn't even an issue. The only thing for me was that I didn't have the accent. I did not have the accent of everyone that spoke over there, especially because the people from the city don't even speak like my family that live over there, that live like in the east side of the country. It's a different accent from the city to the people of the east. So even if I tried to do the accent, I was never going to get it. But not that I ever even thought of it, but that was the only thing. If I was getting criticized was that I don't have the accent, or I'm half Puerto Rican. So a lot of people would think, she's more Puerto Rican, or there was this kind of debate on, who was going to claim El Salvador or Puerto Rico. It was like that. But the culture, you're used to it. When you grow up as a first generation American, the culture is present and very alive in your house. Very alive. The only difference is that, you're in a different country. So as soon as you leave the house, you're like, oh, this is what Americans actually do. And then at home, it's like a whole different story.
Chris, was that a question?
Yeah, it was. I had one question. So have all your pageants been like live, or have some of them been pre-recorded and then later on like broadcasted? And if they were pre-recorded, how is it, like, do you feel less pressure on yourself when it's pre-recorded versus if it's live?
No, they're always live. They're never pre-recorded. They're always, well, when it comes to the final night. But there is what we call preliminary, which is really the real competition in pageantry. Preliminary is where all the contestants go and they compete in front of all the judges. Every girl walks in swim, in gown, and every girl gets interviewed. Every single girl gets a chance. But then when it comes to the final night, that is when they announce the finalists. So the final night is always live and broadcasted. It's basically just a show. The real competition is preliminary, and then the final night.
Do I have any other questions for? I know we kept it. It's been like 50 minutes, so that's why. Because, oh, go ahead.
So my question is, do you mix up your Spanish and English when doing your interview? Because like for me, when I speak to my mom, I couldn't say pronounce a certain word in Spanish. So when I'm talking to my friends, I can't say a certain word in English. So during your interview, do you mix up your two languages up?
So during my interview, if I'm, with a Spanish company, it turns into full switch mode, and I'm completely Spanish. But I find that happening a lot with me in just my daily conversations. that there are a lot of words that I can't say in English properly, or that I confuse with my Spanish words, and then the same thing happens to me in Spanish. But when I'm living in El Salvador for a long time, it's like after I guess about 2 to 3 weeks of being there, then it switches. Then I start thinking in Spanish and transmitting in Spanish. But when I come back to the US and stay for the US, then it switches. It's like a blessing and it's a curse at the same time.
All right.
Like I have like a comment, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Because like I spoke to my grandmother, which I'm from Guatemala. Because yeah, I'm from Guatemala, and when I speak to my grandma, sometimes when I speak to my grandma, I just look at my mom like, "Hey, can you translate this to my grandma?" Because I can't say a certain word in Spanish because there's certain words that I cannot pronounce. So like I'll just look at my mom like, "Hey, can you translate this for me?" So yeah.
Yeah, no, it wasn't like that with me because my mom didn't know English. So the fact that my mom didn't know English and my grandmother and the rest of my family don't know English, that really helped me with my Spanish. But once I started studying at university and, really getting an education, little by little, I felt like I would be losing that Spanish. And I don't know what area you guys live in New Jersey, but I grew up in Hudson County, which is a lot of Spanish people there. If anyone ever heard of Bergen Line Avenue? Or ever been to Bergen Line Avenue? No? Okay. So if anyone's Spanish or even from a different culture, Bergen Line Avenue is like a whole strip of Spanish stores and Spanish restaurants that is very authentic. And all the people that walk around are from their own country. So it always made me feel like I was in this whole Spanish world that I never left, which is why I was already thinking in Spanish. It's happening to me. That's why the language never really left.
Aw.
Well, I grew up in Trenton, which is dominantly Guatemalans, Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, and I never like forget my language because I would never forget where I come from. It doesn't matter if I go to an American school, I would never forget my language because like Spanish is my first language, and I don't want if when I have kids one day, I just want to teach them like Spanish and English because I don't want to forget them like where they actually came from.
So does your mother speak to you in English?
No, she speaks to me in Spanish, but sometimes she tries to speak to me in English, but sometimes it's funny because she couldn't pronounce certain words, so I help her sometimes. But when I speak to her in Spanish, she just makes fun of me sometimes because I don't know how to say pronounce a certain word.
Right. I think you should practice at home speaking in Spanish with your mom, even if she's gonna make fun of you, because you do want to make sure your kids learn the language and that they learn it right. So try to practice as much as you can at home, or if you have any Spanish friends.
I agree with that. I'm sorry, can I just say one thing?
Yep,
Yeah.
and then we got to get off of this.
I
Sorry.
agree with Ramses. You know, I'm a little bit older, and when we were growing up, we were the only Puerto Ricans on the block. My mother tried to instill in us to learn Spanish. There was no way we were going to learn it because we wanted to learn English. Now I'm at a certain age, and I wish I had learned the Spanish because what we picked up along the way was like the street version. So learn it, utilize it, and just like she said, use it at home, get it down, and then just work with it.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I surely speak Spanish at
I
home.
think you're fabulous. I think you're absolutely fabulous, and I think you should keep working at whatever you're doing. I think you're great.
I think also if you have any electives left, take a Spanish class. It will be fun for you.
Yeah,
Well,
because
if
like
you
when I
guys-
speak Spanish,
Oh,
sorry.
if you guys wouldn't mind turning on your cameras, I wanted to take a group photo. This is all going to time out on us any minute. So if you don't mind.
No.
All right. So everybody smile on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Beautiful. Thank you ever so much. This has been
Thank you.
wonderful. Thank you for spending some time with us.
Thank you so much. I love
Don't
it.
already follow her on Instagram, make her life a little less private. And we will talk soon. I'll see y'all later.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Nice to meet you all.